Oh, hello. Welcome to another opening, a Facebook page devoted to all things performance, mostly in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, my backyard. But once in a while, I find something a little farther afield, a story that I also like to bring to you. But in the meantime, I also have a YouTube channel now, and that's entitled Another Opening Dash a Celebration. It seems there's a lot of videos out there under the title of Another Opening, mostly high school productions of Kiss Me Kate. Well, in any event, enjoy. Well, I'm very happy today to be talking to two folks who are of the thousands who have been involved with a theater called the Granite Theater, a gorgeous theater in Westerly, Rhode Island, a gorgeous town. A little far from where I am. I'm in Cranston, so it's a little bit of a hike for me, but I don't have to get a hotel to stay overnight when I go. So I'm not quite a Rhode Islander who needs that to go to Newport. But so as we have the two folks on, I don't know where they fall on your screen, but we only have a gentleman and a woman. So the gentleman is Ken Coe, actor. Probably does other things. We'll talk about that. But why he's here today is primarily I've invited him as an actor, and the artistic director of the theater, and we're going to get into her background and even how she integrates with the theater. And I should have done this before we turn the sound on, but I'll do it anyways. It's Nicole. Pronounce your last name.
DiMattei.
Mattei. I thought it was, at first I had DiMattera because I had a DiMattera friend. And then I looked it up. No, there's no R in there. DiMattei. Very easy, very simple. So, again, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks. So let's start with Nicole because you are the artistic director, and I did read your. So if I have the background, so it goes away.
Yeah, it's a hidden bio.
Sorry, it's my little virtual background, but quite the artist. What it's wonderful. You have such a great. I want you to highlight a little bit of it. You're in a transplant. I don't know where you came from originally before New York, but your last stop, I believe, was New York City to Westerly to this theater. And as you talk about the theater, again, I'm finding just even in Rhode Island, we all know Trinity, we all know GAM, but there is everything in between. Barker, these places have been around forever, obviously. But how do you term it? How does it fit with Trinity, GAM, and High School Musical? Where does the Granite Theater fall?
It's interesting. I have no problem calling it a community theater because I love the idea that it's a community theater. I love that we do shows for our community. I love that our doors are open for our community. And for me, it's more important that we support and highlight our community than it is that, we bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? And coming from a professional background, that really excited me. Because I loved working in the professional world. I worked professionally for 20 years, but this is really a different change of pace, and the passion I find is greater in this setting. That being said, we do give stipends. The actors are paid per show. The directors, the music directors, the stage managers, they are all paid a lump sum, which is it's not nothing. And so I find that actors, when they put us on their resume, actually list us as a professional theater, because they were paid. So yeah, we're non-union, absolutely, but so we're not following any Lord or contracts or anything. So, but in that sense, yeah, I've actually I've done a ton of non-equity theater, and I don't, I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely, list us as professional if you would like to. But
people will use it. People will say it. I agree with it. Professional is, of course, this is a line. I don't know. I drop lines in from Big Bang Theory, which is oh my God. After Seinfeld, I thought I was going to have to kill myself. Nothing left, and then Big Bang came along, and as Leonard asks Penny, she's saying she's a professional actress. So, have you ever been paid? that's not the definition of professional. And of course, he's not in the business. So he goes, well, yeah, it sort of is. Uh, but your resume, which is online, your about. I love when you go to a website about. Oh, there, and all your stuff is, which I didn't know. I read it quickly. I didn't know the writing stuff about off Broadway shows. So I'm going to look into that. It sounds like so much fun. So let's flip a little bit to Ken. We're going to come back. We want to talk about the season so far and going forward. And but why I have Ken here, and I told him this before we turned on the recording, um, was that and again we just put it a little bit here. I was surprised at him coming back and talking about coming back. And the shows I saw was Our Town, which is I've never liked Town, sorry, but your production was fantastic. I'm sorry, and I'm not blowing smoke. It was really like I said, it's been years, and of course, I love it when something you see something you like, all of a sudden it becomes on Broadway. So we had Jim Parsons talking about Big Bang, doing the stage manager in that, and I'm not going to go into the plot. Everyone knows Our Town. And Ken can tell me little bit about his part that he played one of the fathers. There's a couple of fathers in it. And so they're sort of the stage manager and I guess the two lovers are sort of the boy and the girl are what we'd say maybe the first tier. And then it comes down to the townspeople. And then it becomes an ensemble with all the townspeople. But the staging, who directed that? We should put that out there.
Brad Delzer.
And
yeah,
the
wonderful, talented man.
Was amazing. It's loose staging. It even says in the script, Thornton Wilder didn't want you to have props, so things are mimed and stuff like that. And once you get past that as an audience member, I mean, I got it as a theater person, but after you get past that, the audience just, again, I saw all the things that the actors were dealing with. So Ken, tell us again, why don't you take us back a little bit into your background, what you doing now, what you did professionally, to earn a living, and then the hiatus and the coming back. You've got 2.5 minutes.
Well, professionally, it was kind of the antithesis of acting. I was an engineer for many, many years. When I was young, in college, and for several years after college, I did a lot of acting. I loved it. I went to an engineering school, very, very structured, very science oriented, and I kind of fell in love with student theater there because it was an outlet that was, completely different. That kind of let your right brain side fly instead of all the left brain in classes, and so I truly loved that and kept doing community theater for several years after I left college. Met my wife doing community theater. I mean, it's a great social activity, and had a wonderful time with it. But as responsibilities grew, family, career, that sort of thing, I couldn't, I couldn't put the commitment to time in. As you know, doing a theater production, especially as an actor with a rehearsal process, you're committing a large chunk of time, and to a very fixed schedule between rehearsals and performances. And I just couldn't do it anymore. And so I spent a lot of years, in my career, which I've enjoyed very much, and with my family, but promising myself that when I had the time again, I'd get back to it. And that's exactly what happened.
What do you where were you doing all this other stuff were you here or somewhere in another state?
No, down south. I went to college in Atlanta, went to Georgia Tech, then went down to Florida for most of my career. Nowhere near, and I didn't really think I'd end up in the Connecticut, Rhode Island area, but here I am. Actually, we followed our kids up here. We have
cool.
A son and daughter-in-law that we love dearly, and we're enjoying being close to them. But after I retired, I kept my promise to myself and decided to get back into acting. My son had actually done something at Granite, which was how I knew about it, and so I tried out for Our Town. And I actually, I really, made a real serious step at the audition, hoping that I would have a chance at stage manager, because of course everybody loves the stage manager.
Everyone wants to be the stage manager.
Everybody wants to be the stage manager, and I was so disappointed that I didn't get a chance to be the stage manager. And then I found out the quality of the cast that I was in, and how
Yep.
good these people were, and how much experience they had. And I mean, Mr. Webb's a wonderful, wonderful role, and I had a
Great
wonderful
role.
time
Well, they're all
doing
great
it.
roles.
Yeah,
Really.
yeah. I got over that disappointment very quickly, because it was such an incredible cast. Brad is an amazing director, and you saw the production that we ended up with. I think we're all still a year later so amazingly proud of that production.
The two young lovers. Again, the female, would you say, was Kendall?
Kendall.
Was it-
Yes, yeah,
And then
yeah,
Hayden was
yeah, yes.
No pretense. No one on that stage was acting. I'm sorry. I know this sounds like everyone says that on a good show, but it's true. I believed every single character. I didn't know anyone. I mean, it's different. Maybe if I know that's his shtick. I know him when we're out on a bar. He plays that. That's how he does that accent. So I don't know. But everything was so real. And when she would come out, and it was they had the length and breadth of the happy thing, the sad thing, the angry thing, especially that whole funeral thing. Okay, so enough of that. No, it's wonderful as it was. Now I'm going to come back to you, but I like to split things up. So now I want to talk a little bit with Nicole about the season. Two things I want to say. First of all, I don't know if I was busy. I probably wouldn't have got Full Monty to see it, but it sold out and it just closed, correct? And so I didn't know a lot about it. I mean, I knew there was a movie and all that. And so I read before I came in here, I read the plot of the play. And of course, the movie was the same plot, but I had this image that it was, the Chippendales. But obviously it's because the guys see the Chippendales. And so that's the connection to it. Now I got to ask a couple questions because I didn't see it. How nude was it?
So it's actually really funny. I felt like had to be so careful with the guys. I was like, in auditions, we will stop at your comfort level, and all of them were like, whatever. We had an intimacy coach come in and kind of give them some tips and work with them a bit, but they, after that night, they like really ran with it. Everyone wore nude undergarments, which was good because, sometimes the things about
happen. It's theater. You can't stop. Exactly. And we're going to do a recut on that. Yeah. No.
Yeah. And what was the most stressful? So at the very end of the show, they do the Full Monty, but the lights blind the audience.
Right.
And so Perfect. It's like, as soon as they pull off the G-string, so they pull off the G-string, as soon as they uncover the hat, right? The lights are supposed to blind the audience. Never in my life have I been so stressed about a light cue.
and think of the guy or the gal who's running the light board. How much is this worth to you, Nicole?
Right. Well, and even, in general, our stage managers, especially for musicals, will call the show. So, and I was like, absolutely, like, the stage manager was like, I might want to be backstage, just like, might want to call the show from backstage, just in case anyone needs help. And I was like, no. Yeah, no, I am so with you on that one, especially for musicals. And the stage manager knows the show so well. Yep. The light board operator comes in tech week. Sure. And so much of that show too was, I was like, because I designed the lights for that show as well. And I was like, okay, so when the music swells, that's when this cue happens. And the light board operator was like, I have no idea what you mean. I was like, that's okay. The stage manager knows what I mean. You don't have to worry about anything. And I actually,
and I've seen it more than one production of Calendar Girls. And it's the same thing. You got a bunch of, which are great, mature women. And it's a different, there's drama, of course, and to Full Monty. and the steel workers and whatever. So in this one again, the Calendar Girls was about cancer and whatnot, but it's still the same thing. You're being careful about how much we see. All right, we'll be back to you again in a moment, Nicole. Now back to Ken, as I was mentioning that you went from something kind of safe in the sense of size of part in our time to Sleuth. It was an ensemble piece. I have to say this. It's an ensemble piece of two.
Yeah.
Sure, ensemble too. But it's a good role in the sense that when the other person stops talking, it's your turn. There's no looking around. Whose line is it?
It's absolutely a bucket list role.
And again, for people out there, it was done in a movie with Sir Laurence Olivier as your role and Michael Caine, and it's two characters.
Okay, the one rule I put down at the theater was nobody compares me to Olivier because I'm not going to like the answer.
Right.
I don't know. I like your person better.
The character calls for you to be rakish, to be foppish, a bit foppish. You were a dandy. The character calls for you to be a dandy, and yet it's again, people know it. It's a drama. It's vicious at the it has its crescendos.
It has its vicious moments.
So Ken, how did you learn all those words?
Pretty much forced death march. Anthony Caporale directed that show, and Anthony and Nicole have worked together for years and years. They did their off-Broadway show together, and they have very similar processes. Anthony is a real stickler for the words, for the playwright. The way he describes it and the way Nicole describes it is, the playwright wrote these words. The playwright put a lot of thought into them. And respect that, and as you put the other night, Nicole. And by the way, it's illegal to do otherwise. But here's the good thing. As I said, I retired before I started getting back into this, and that gives me a lot of time to to sit down and do that. So yeah.
And again, I have to blow smoke because that role, that production, was again the same concept of the characters were so real. And even though the story is the plot's better, the plot is much more intense than Our Town. Our Town is a lovely, sentimental play. But this, again, because of the viciousness and the tricks, again, maybe if somebody's going to go see it or be in it, I won't give too many tricks, but the tricks in it are great. And the single casting just of two characters is amazing. And it is a tug of war between you and the other character. Sometimes you're up, sometimes he's up.
Yeah.
And was it good? Was it? I mean, except for the lines.
No. It was seriously. It was wonderful to do. I mean, that character is so much. That is such a larger than life character. I mean, the highs, the lows, everything. And he's so bombastic, and he's so. He loves language so much. I mean, there is never. I don't think I've ever had a role where I've had to go to the dictionary so many times because he loves, he loves 8-bit words, and he will throw out, especially because he's upper class, the other character is not, and so he uses that as a weapon against the other character, and so it was, his use of language, his whole manner of speaking, the linguistic style, the sentence structure, everything is, it's all larger than life. It's wonderful, and it was a wonderful character play. So yeah,
and the set was gorgeous, and served the play. I mean, you really do have to have a double an upper level to it. A lot of theaters try to do something that their space is not suited to. All right, so now we're coming back to Nicole, and the other thing that I will come see, because I couldn't get into Cool Monty, is the Laramie Project. Now, I've been to your theater. Like I said, you go downstairs from upstairs and it's all your posters over. We'll talk a little bit. I do want to hit a little bit of the history of the theater. They're all in case, the posters all lined up, which are great. And you got every Neil Simon, you got nonsense. You got to, it's all there. And so there's not a caliber, but okay, this is sort of maybe a kind of a niche, but one of the show when I came to see our time to talk about the next year, and I looked in the spring, it was Laramie. Is that the one I'm thinking? I looked it up. So tell us about the Laramie project and what brought you to think that, not to think, but did you have any reservations that this would be? I haven't read the script. Just the plot, the story of it is enough for a community theater to say it's great, but it's probably not for our audience. So, Nicole.
Yeah. So actually, so this is our 25th anniversary, and in I like to theme the seasons, and so this year the theme is all the shows that were on or off Broadway when the Granite opened in the year 2000. And so it wonderfully limited my selection. It's a great season. Like 2000 was awesome for Broadway. But Laramie Project was one that obviously had, passed my mind, and I just was never sure, right? And I was like, if I'm going to do it, this theme gives me the perfect opportunity to, because it was off Broadway in the year 2000. And I was hesitant. I got into theater. I am all about people's voices, but I love musical theater. I love musical theater that just makes you happy and you walk out, you know what I mean? As much as I loved Our Town, I cried my eyes out during dress rehearsal. I cried my eyes out during opening, and then I did not see it again because I just couldn't. There were no seats either, but whereas then we did Drowsy Chaperone, and that show I could see every day. So for me, like, I just love being taken away. But so I was hesitant about Laramie. I still don't even, I've only been in Westerly for 2 years. So I don't, 2 years ago, I would have been like, absolutely not. Now I know our audience better. And I was like, okay, they can, number one, I think they can do it. And then I read the script, and it's so well done. It is, so a theater company in New York traveled to Laramie, Wyoming after the kidnapping and murder of Matthew Shepard, who was a gay college student. And what they did was wonderfully unbiasedly interviewed people from the community. And you really get to, I say this, again, I don't love to get political, but I was saying this to someone recently that while most of my friends agree with me politically, I have some people in my life whom I love, and yet I cannot understand.
Me too.
Their current okayness with the situation that we're dealing with. And yet there is, like, I know enough about them that I love this part of them, and I'm not forgiving, but there's like, I can't hate you, right? And so this show does that exactly. You see the people that did this to him, or that, I don't want to say allowed it to happen, but like brushed it off. But you get to see also some goodness in them, and where the, wonderful thing about theater, right? Where the ups and downs, the dichotomy of a human being, right? And so I really, really hope that it is well received. The other thing about it was when I talked about doing it, I went right to Brad, who directed Our Town, and I was like, you are the only one who I think can do justice to this. And so he is directing it, and
Right.
because he's directing it, it's a lot of our town cast who wanted
Right.
to work with
Good.
him again. So it's a nice little reunion. And Ken is currently in Tale of the
Right. He
Allergist's
told
Wife
me. He
and in
told me.
Laramie. So
Great. Well, I'm
um,
sorry. Going to do
And
Laramie too? Or
yes,
you?
yeah,
Oh,
as a matter of fact,
really?
that's
Oh,
where I'm headed
great.
tonight. Um, and I've got to tell you, I'm not fond of doing two in a row just because the overlapping rehearsal schedule can be crazy. The only reason I auditioned for Laramie was the opportunity to work with Brad again. I mean, I love the play. It's a beautifully written play. It's undeniably heavy. The event at the core of it is absolutely tragic. So it can be hard in places. But if I can't imagine anybody dealing with it, with more sensitivity and with more empathy and really drawing the audience into it more than I expect. How Brad will, and we're in that process right now, and it's really a wonderful thing to work with.
Well, because Nicole, when I talked to Ken way along, I don't know how many millions of years ago to do this, and then time got away from us. It might even have been before the election. I'm not sure.
it was.
Time got away from us, and he told me, he connected me to you, and he said, "Oh, I only remember you came out as the, you know, curtain speech lady." And I said,
I'm the
and he
hype
said,
man.
"Oh, that's the artistic director." And I went, "Oh, how much coffee has she had?" Um,
It
but
is
I said,
completely an
okay,
act. I am
so
always so
you
tired.
said you'd do it and all that, and then I lost track, and then Ken said, oh, I'm auditioning for another show, and again, I didn't know the order and how soon one. Sometimes it is overlapping auditions or whatever, and he said the allergist wife, and I said, oh, okay. I mean, it'd be great to see him, and so now I'm so happy he's going to be in Laramie Project as well. All right, so we don't want to go too far here, too long. So I do want now back to Nicole to tell me a little quickly history of the theater.
The theater before it was the Granite was the Colonial Theater. The Colonial Theater is still a professional theater that operates. They do one Shakespeare in the Park. It's not always Shakespeare, but they're known for their Shakespeare in the Park, and it's a professional equity show that casts out of New York. There's host families that house the actors, and yeah, they build a stage in the middle of Wilcox Park in Westerly and put on a show in the summer. It's great. It's free, so a really cool thing. And my first time in Westerly, I stumbled upon it and I was like, "Where am I? This is amazing!" But and then they gave up the building in 1999 for a number of reasons, but one of which is that running a professional theater is very
Very
difficult.
expensive, very
Yeah.
expensive. So, but from 2000 is now incorporated as the Granite Theater, correct?
Yep. Yeah. And yeah, the Jepsons were there, I think, until 2018. Actually, it might have been 2019, and then COVID kind of
Oh,
came
killed
in.
everything.
Like, I think they retired right before COVID. There was an interim artistic director, and then COVID hit, and the theater closed for
And
like a year and a half.
what is your background? Not your background, but your history, your journey. You came from New York to here. Have you always been in New York? Did you come from
Yeah, so
California?
no, I grew up between Long Island and Eastern Pennsylvania. So
So I want to now, because Ken has to go to rehearsal. I want to wrap up with anything either one of you want to say about anything. It doesn't have to be about the theater. Doesn't have to be about shows you've done. I just want to give the floor to both of you. Let us start with Ken because he has been quiet for a bit.
Hey, I want to give a plug to Allergist Wife, because I didn't know anything about the show. I talked with Nicole last fall and said, "Hey, they just Granite had just revealed the new season." And I said, "Tell me about the shows because there's a lot of shows in here I'm just not familiar with." And not very surprising, I said, and especially tell me about shows that might have interesting roles for a male in my age range. And she told me about The Allergist Wife, among others, and I read it, and I thought, okay, this reads funny. This is looks like a fun role, looks like a fun show. As I said, I had never heard of the show. And I think that's the case. I think a lot of people have never heard of the show. We have been it's wonderful humor. It's wonderful. Um character driven humor. You mentioned a lot of Neil Simon shows on the walls before, and Neil Simon obviously, had an incredible run on Broadway and had a lot of wonderful shows. His shows have lots and lots of jokes in them, lots of punchlines. This doesn't. This is character based humor. This is really you get to love these characters, and they are all distinct. and but I think I really want to encourage a lot of people to come out to this. It is the funniest show you never heard of, and I really want a lot of people to see it. So there's my plug.
Very good.
Thank you,
All right,
Ken.
Nicole, you don't have to plug anything if you don't want
No,
to, but
yeah, but
here's your
just
opportunity. We want to give everyone knows how to get, websites. I'm not going to give all that yet. You
yeah.
Google, you're on Facebook, I don't know about Instagram and all that. I don't do that, but you're on Facebook and you're on your website, so everyone can find everything. You got Ticketron probably or whatever those stupid ticket sites, so people can. Let's not waste their time with that. So anything of substance you'd like to say?
Yeah, like just I really appreciate honestly, again, this is my third season here and it's just very I'm very aware that people are starting to trust me and really, really support the theater. I was looking at some numbers. We had the Rotary Club sponsor a one night show early in the year, and they had asked me before they agreed to give me money for it. Just some stats on the theater, and it's really just shocking to see between 2023 and 2024 we had 1,500 extra people in the audience, and that's the lower, right? That's on the lower. I think it was closer to like 1,650 or something. My first year here, we had 13 kids in our youth program. We have 46 that are in the upcoming show. And then our season ticket holders, the first year we had 73. This year we have 169. Like, it's really amazing, and it really, it really goes to show that people are interested in what we're doing and really just want to be a part of it. We started a backstage pass program. So this past Wednesday, I had our backstage pass members in an open rehearsal for The Allergist Wife. Nice. And we worked on 3 bits of scenes where they got to see, the actors trial and error and me direct them. And we did a talk back afterwards. And so it's really cool that like this excitement of theater is here. And, I had one of the members email me afterwards and say, you know what, I actually might like the backstage pass more than the finished product. I feel like I'm learning so much. And then, yeah, just to add on Ken's, Charles Busch wrote Tale of the Allergist Wife. He wrote Vampire Lesbians of Sodom. I don't know if you've heard of that show.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so this was his attempt to be a little more mainstream, but to Ken's point, I love characters, right? I wrote a pilot that was optioned by Lionsgate. I've written a bunch, and the stuff that I'm always drawn to is character driven because people are so interesting to me. One-liner jokes, I don't care about, but these 5 people, not only the 5 people in the show are just so interesting and hilarious, these 5 actors are insanely talented. And it is a dream to work with them. I can't tell you, I laugh. I have the loudest laugh. Like, I know I have a loud laugh, but I feel like I'm laughing so much lately in rehearsals, and it's just been wonderful. And while there's no 6 men taking their clothes off, I really hope that this show sells just as well.
Oh, thank goodness, I was getting worried. No, it just with regard to what you just, the cast is amazing. I love these people. They are, the cast is the most consistently wonderful cast, so well suited for the roles and so much talent. I am absolutely loving working with this group of people.
Wonderful. All right. Well, as I said, now Ken, are you going to rehearsal with her? Or are you going to rehearsal with somebody else?
I am headed to a Laramie project rehearsal tonight.
There you
Brett.
go. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was saying, I know you're in Connecticut, but you're close by. I'm saying, wait a minute, he can't go to rehearsal if the director's here. So it's the other show. All right. So I want to wrap up. I want to thank you guys for joining me today, Ken Coe and Nicole DiMattei.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim.